Hi everyone, Dreki here, and today I'm reviewing the Xiaomi 70Mi Dashcam. After the relative success of the Blue Sky C B1W, I wanted to review a few more cheap dashcams. The version I have is the Chinese language only dashcam with an English app, but for those of you who are interested in backing the English version on Indigogo, this will at least give you an idea of what the video and build quality is like. If you don't care about language, you can currently pick up this camera for $36 from GearBest in the link below. The 70Mi Dashcam is also known as the 70 Minutes Dashcam. It's a 1080p cam based on a Sony IMX323 sensor and a lithium-ion battery. Included in the box is the camera itself, with a screw-on type sticky mount, a single-port USB adapter, and a long USB cable for installation. The camera body is a tube of plastic that's larger than a lipstick tube and feels fairly solid. The single button on the one side of the camera has a nice click to it, and the micro USB and memory card are located on the other side. There's no flex to the plastic body and it's got a nice texture to it. The camera is not totally black in color, so it may not hide perfectly behind your rear view mirror. It's more of a dark gray. With the Chinese language version, the only thing you really lose over the English version is voice control, and since this camera speaks to you when starting up and recording and whatnot, you might not be able to understand it if you don't speak Chinese. Since there is no screen, the only way to control the camera is through the app. Well, thankfully the app is available in English, even for the Chinese version of this camera. Video quality during the day is decent for such a cheap dashcam. It's clear enough that you can see what is going on in the frame. For example, watch this guy run a red light here. It's not as crispy sharp as the Viofo A119, but it is similar in quality to the A118C series, so it matches other cameras at this price point. When the sky is blue and the sun is bright, the camera does well, but it's best when it's overcast and bright out. The contrast is a little bit higher than other cameras I've tested in this price range, meaning dark colors are darker and light colors are lighter, presumably to help read license plates, but I feel that in some cases the contrast could be a little bit lower. I find the colors to also be muted. This is totally fine if you're just going to use the camera as a set it and forget it type dash recorder, more so than the kind of cam that you'd use to share videos about your trip, make YouTube videos, something like that where you want the best video quality possible. Exposure is overall on point even in tough situations. Even in direct sunlight, I never had trouble making out the color of traffic lights or surrounding vehicles. License plates and parked cars directly adjacent to your lane are readable in most daytime situations, as are license plates of oncoming cars that are directly beside you with no median. If it's one lane over or there's a median, the high chance is that you won't be able to read the license plate, but in some cases you still can. The one thing that concerns me about this camera though is focus shift. A lot of cheaper cameras experience focus shifting in heat, and I noticed as I was recording some of the footage was blurrier than others, especially after I'd been recording for a long time. In general, license plates were still readable, but they became readable when I was 10 to 15 feet away from cars, whereas other cameras I had are readable a little bit farther than that. Street signs were readable when I entered intersections, but not necessarily when I was sitting at the stop line at a red light. Anything farther than a street sign, though, would get blurry due to it being out of focus. Since it's winter here, it's impossible to test any extreme focus shifting due to heat, but I just want to say that this is the reason I don't recommend the Yi Dashcam, despite its low price and relatively high performance under ideal conditions. The other thing that is a potential concern is the wobble from the mount. This camera is a big tube-shaped camera, and since the location of the mount is off-center, it causes some wobble when going over small bumps. You can even see it wobbling when I'm idling here at a stoplight. This isn't really a deal-breaker, as it's a fairly common trait of other cameras that don't mount super solid, and it doesn't totally degrade the video in a meaningful way. License plates are still readable, but it's just something to keep in mind if you're the kind of person that wants perfectly smooth footage. At night and in low light, this camera performs okay, but it's noticeably darker than the similarly priced B1W. License plates stay readable for the most part, but don't expect to read things like street signs. If you're not under street lights and it's totally dark out, don't expect to see much at all, just a slight illumination where your headlights are. If you do get into an incident in these conditions, I expect you'll be able to see important things like stop signs, the color of traffic lights, the color of the other vehicles, and that sort of thing, but I don't expect you'll be easily identifying what street you're on or their license plate number. But again, this is fairly common with most dashcams in this price range, and perhaps is something that can be improved in future firmware updates. Overall, yes, in terms of sheer video quality, it's pretty cool that they can do this for $35. Most license plates are readable in the day, and night footage is acceptable, even if it's not the sharpest camera I've reviewed. As with most dashcams though, I recommend investing in more expensive gear if you can afford it. There's no guarantee cheaper cameras will be reliable in the long term, and there's a huge possibility of buyer's remorse if the camera does fail when you need it. So I always recommend getting the best camera and memory card combination you can afford, but if this is all you can afford for $35, it's not bad. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please leave them in the link below.